Most people spend their entire lives trying to become better at getting what they want: more money, more status, more attention, more success. But Naval Ravikant asks a much more uncomfortable question. What if you're incredibly good at getting what you want and you simply want the wrong things? That's why some of his ideas actually feel different. They're not really about becoming more productive, they are actually about understanding the game you're playing even before you spend your entire life winning it. So, here, ladies and gentlemen, are 10 of Naval Ravikant's most deepest ideas. And the last few aren't really about money at all, they are actually about how to live. 1. The only true test of intelligence is if you get what you want out of life. And Naval says that there are actually two parts to this. First, can you get what you want? And second, do you know what you should want in the first place? That distinction is absolutely enormous. Because imagine spending 20 years becoming incredibly successful only to realize you have actually built a life you never wanted. You got the degree, you got the job, you got the money, you got the apartment, you got the status perhaps, and somewhere along the way, you stopped asking, why do I want any of this? Naval points out that our desires are often inherited from parents, from friends, from society, from watching what everyone else around us is actually chasing. So, intelligence isn't just knowing how to win, it's knowing which game is worth winning. Because there are two ways to waste your life: one, failing to get what you want, and perhaps the worst one is getting exactly what you wanted and discovering it wasn't worth having. 2. Desires a contract you make to be unhappy until you actually get what you want. This actually sounds pessimistic at first, but it's actually incredibly practical. Think about the last time you desperately wanted something: a job, a relationship, a certain amount of money, a new phone, or a promotion perhaps. Your mind tells you, once I get this, I'll finally be happy. And then when you get it, for a while you're actually happy. And then your mind moves to the finish line. You need the next thing, then the next thing. And Neville's point is that you shouldn't have goals, right? It's not his point. It's that you shouldn't be the person who's actually outsourcing your happiness to the achievement of those goals, because desire, ladies and gentlemen, creates a gap between where you are and where you think you need to be, and as long as that gap exists, something feels missing. The goal then isn't to stop wanting everything, it's to become much more selective about what deserves your desire in the first place. 3. Play long term games with long term people. This might be one of Naval's most useful ideas because almost everything valuable compounds. Money compounds, knowledge compounds, reputation compounds, relationships compound, trust compounds, but compounding requires something very simple: time. If you keep switching people, jobs, industries, strategies, and goals every few months, you are constantly resetting the clock. But when you work with the same great people for, let's say, maybe 10 years, something absolutely incredible happens and something fundamentally changes. You stop negotiating every little thing. You understand each other. Trust increases, friction decreases, opportunities multiply, and eventually the relationship itself becomes an asset. That's why Naval says that the biggest returns in life is often coming from playing repeated games rather than one shot games. The lesson here, ladies and gentlemen, is absolutely simple. Don't just ask, what can I gain from this person? Ask, can we build something exceptional together for the next decade? 4. Arm yourself with specific knowledge, accountability, and leverage. This is where Naval's thinking on wealth becomes extremely interesting. He doesn't believe the answer is simple, right? Like work hard. He believes the answer is become uniquely valuable, then find ways to scale that particular value. Specific knowledge is something you're unusually good at because of your particular combination of curiosity, personality, experience, and interests. Then comes accountability. You put your name behind the outcome, and then the leverage. You find ways for your effort to produce results far beyond the hours you personally work. Code can do this, media can do this, capital can do this, a team can do this, and today, surprisingly, AI can increasingly do this too. The fundamental idea here, ladies and gentlemen, is don't just increase your effort, increase the output produced by each unit of effort. That's the difference between being busy and being powerful. 5. Productize yourself. Two words, but they're incredibly deep. Naval essentially combines two ideas. Find what is uniquely yours, then scale it. Maybe you're exceptionally good at explaining things writing, design, coding, investing, selling, teaching, or building communities, perhaps. The mistake is assuming that because you're good at something, you should simply sell more hours doing it. Instead, what you should be doing is turn the skill into an asset, a book, a company, software, a course, a media platform, a brand, a system, something that can continue producing value without requiring you to actually restart from zero every single morning. That's what Naval means by productizing yourself. Take your unique abilities and connect them to leverage because your goal isn't merely to become more useful, it's to become uniquely useful at scale. 6. Leverage is a force multiplier for your judgment. Here's the dangerous part leverage doesn't just make you smarter, it makes your decisions more powerful. If you're making a bad decision and have no leverage, you might waste a week. If you're making a bad decision with millions of dollars, thousands of employees, or even a massive audience, you can create enormous damage. But the opposite is also true. A great decision with enormous leverage can change everything. That's why Naval argues that in a world where leverage is increasingly abundant, judgment is what goes on to become incredibly valuable. Think about a career today. One good idea can become maybe a video, then a million views, then maybe a business, and then a company perhaps. The work happened once, the output keeps multiplying. So don't just ask, how can I work harder? Instead, a fundamentally more soundproof question that you can actually go ahead and ask yourself is, how can I make my decisions scale? 7. Read the best books over and over again. This one is actually Naval's simplest ideas, or perhaps one of the most simplest ideas, or one of the more simpler ideas. And it's actually completely against the way most people consume information in today's day and age. Most people want more information. Naval wants deeper understanding, and there lies an enormous difference. You can read 100 books and remember almost nothing, or read 10 exceptional books repeatedly until their ideas become a part of how you actually think and make decisions. The goal isn't to be able to say that I've actually read that. The goal is to be able to say that I understand that. And once you really understand something, you start seeing it everywhere. You recognize patterns, you connect ideas from different fields, you make better decisions. That's why Naval emphasizes reading the best books repeatedly rather than simply collecting more books. Because, ladies and gentlemen, in today's day and age, information is cheap and understanding is absolutely rare. 8. A peaceful mind makes better decisions. This might be one of the most underrated Naval ideas. We tend to think that stress makes us productive, that anxiety creates ambition, that being unhappy keeps us hungry. But think about what happens to your mind when your mind is actually constantly noisy. You can't focus, you go on to overreact, you make emotional decisions, you keep switching tasks, and you can't distinguish what's important from what's merely urgent. Naval argues that unhappiness is actually an inefficient because a restless mind consumes enormous amount of attention, and this creates an interesting paradox. Peace isn't necessarily the enemy to ambition. It can make ambition more effective because when your mind is actually quiet, you can see clearly, and when you can see clearly, you don't need to move as much. You just need to move in the right direction. 9. The solution is indirect. This is one of the most fascinating patterns in Naval's thinking. Some of the things we want most become harder when we chase them directly. Want money? Don't obsess over money. Create something valuable. Want status? Don't chase status. Become useful. Want happiness? Don't constantly ask yourself whether you're happy. Build a life with fewer unnecessary desires. Want great relationships? Don't treat people as instruments for getting what you want. Become someone people want to build a life with. Naval's point is that many difficult things are actually byproducts. You don't manufacture them directly, you go on to create the conditions that make them emerge. It's like trying to fall asleep. The harder you try to sleep, the more awake you actually go on to become. You don't force sleep, you go ahead and create the conditions for it. Some of the life's biggest outcomes work the same way. And last and finally, 10, you have only one life, or you have only one life, right? So don't go ahead and settle for mediocrity. And this is where all the other ideas actually go ahead and come together. You have one life, which means your time is the one resource you can't replenish. So don't spend it blindly pursuing somebody else's definition of success. Don't spend it collecting achievements that don't matter to you. Don't spend it trying to impress people you don't even like. And don't spend it optimizing a life you never consciously chose. Naval's deeper message isn't become richer, right? It isn't even become more successful. It's become more deliberate. Know what you want, know why you want it, understand your strengths, build specific knowledge, use leverage, choose long term games, protect your peace, and then spend your limited time building a life that actually belongs to you. Because, ladies and gentlemen, maybe the ultimate form of success isn't getting everything you want, maybe it's becoming wise enough to know what is actually worth wanting. There's something interesting about Naval's ideas. None of them are really hacks. There's no wake up at 5 a.m. hack. There's no work 16 hours a day hack. No, here are 7 tricks to become successful that successful people actually use hack. Instead, he keeps returning to deeper questions. What are you optimizing for? Why do you want to do it? What are you uniquely good at? How can you scale it? Who are you playing the game with? Are you even playing the right game, to be very specific? And maybe that's why these ideas stick, because the older you get, the more you realize that life isn't just about making better moves, it's about choosing a better game altogether.